At the end of the day, Rob came to the cottage of a kind widow he had known since childhood. She fed him and listened to his story. The widow told him that her 3 sons had been outlawed for hunting the king's deer to keep from starving. The sons were now hiding in the forest with a group of outlawed men, but would be visiting the widow that night. Rob stayed and met her sons. They got along well, and Rob decided to join their band of outlaws. He pledged an oath of loyalty and was told where in the forest they lived. Rob also learned that their band needed a leader, someone skilled with his hands, but smart as well. They had decided that if one of the outlaws could sneak into the Nottingham Festival, win the archery tournament, and escape, that man would become the band's leader. Rob was determined to be that man, but he knew he must disguise himself. The Sheriff of Nottingham had posted a reward for his capture, dead or alive. On the day of the great archery tournament, 20 men stepped forward to shoot. Among them was a limping beggar in ragged clothes and a hood. The crowd mocked him. Side by side with Rob, for it was he who was dressed as a beggar, stood a muscular man with a green eye patch. The crowd also jeered him, but he ignored them and practiced with his bow. The audience was excited. In the central box sat the sheriff, his wife, and their vain daughter. The daughter expected to receive the golden arrow from the victor and be crowned queen of the day. Not far from the sheriff's box sat a girl whose dark hair, dark eyes, and fair features made Rob's heart leap. Maid Marian! If Rob had been resolved to win the tournament before, the sight of her sweet face multiplied his determination 100 times. The trumpet sounded, and the rules of the tournament were announced. The first target was to be placed 30 yards away, and all those who hit its center were allowed to shoot at the second target, placed 10 yards farther off. The third target was to be moved even farther until the winner was proved. The winner was to receive the golden arrow and a job with the king's foresters. He would also crown the queen of the day. The trumpet sounded again, and the tournament began. 12 out of the 20 contestants reached the inner circle of the first target. Rob shot well, and was rewarded by an approving grunt from the man with the green eye patch, who aimed carelessly, yet also shot well. The next target was set up at 40 yards. The first 3 archers did well and were loudly applauded, for they were popular and expected to win. But Rob's arrow landed closer to the center than any of theirs. The man with the eye patch, whom the crowd had nicknamed Blinder, shot nearly as well as Rob did. "You shoot well," said Rob's comrade. "Do you wish me to shoot first in the next round?" "Nay," said Rob, "but you are good to offer, and if I do not win, I hope you can keep the prize from those strutters." And he nodded scornfully to the 3 other archers who were surrounded by their admirers. From them his eye wandered toward Maid Marian's booth. His comrade's quick eye followed Rob's. "A fair maid that," he said smilingly, "and one more worthy of the golden arrow than the sheriff's haughty daughter." Rob glanced quickly at him, but saw only kindness in his face. "You are a shrewd fellow, and I like you well," was Rob's only comment. For the third round, the target was set up 50 yards away. The first 3 men shot, but only grazed the inner circle. Rob prepared to shoot. Some clouds overhead made the light uncertain, and a wind frolicked across the range. His eyes wandered for a brief moment to the box where Marian sat. She met his glance and smiled at him reassuringly, and in that moment he felt that Marian recognized him and looked to him to keep the honor of old Sherwood. He drew his bow firmly and, taking advantage of the momentary lull in the breeze, launched the arrow straight and true to the center of the target. The audience that had mocked him now roared its approval. The man with the eye patch drew his bow with ease and grace, and, without seeming to study the course, released the winged arrow. All eyes followed its flight. A loud uproar broke forth when it hit just outside the center, grazing the arrow sent by Rob. The man had not allowed for the wind, which carried the arrow to one side. Still, he was the first to congratulate Rob. "I hope we may shoot again," he said. "I do not care for the golden arrow. I hoped to win it only to spite the sheriff. Now, crown the lady of your choice." And turning suddenly, he disappeared into the crowd. A herald led Rob to the sheriff box. "You are a curious fellow," said the sheriff, biting his lip coldly. "Yet you shoot well. What name do you go by?" Marian sat near, listening intently. "I am called Rob the Stroller," said Rob. Marian leaned back and smiled. Well, Rob the stroller, with a little attention to your skin and clothes, you would not be so bad a man, said the sheriff. How do you like the idea of entertaining my service? Rob the stroller has always been a free man, my lord, and desires no service. The sheriff's brow darkened, yet for the sake of his daughter he concealed his feelings. Rob the stroller, he said, here is the golden arrow which is meant for the best archer this day. You are awarded the prize. Bestow it worthily. At this point the herald nudged Rob, and half nodded his head toward the sheriff's daughter, who sat with a thin smile on her lips. But Rob walked past her to the next box, where Maid Marian sat. Accept this gift from a poor stroller who would devote himself to your service, he said. My thanks to you, Rob in the Hood, she replied with a twinkle in her eye. She placed the gleaming arrow in her hair. The sheriff glowered furiously upon this ragged archer who had refused his service, taken his prize without a word of thanks, and snubbed his daughter. He ordered his men to follow the beggar. But Rob lost himself in the throng and escaped through the town gate and into the forest. That evening, Rob found the band of outlaws in their forest hideout. The men welcomed him and asked if he had won the golden arrow in the tournament. Rob explained that he had indeed won the golden arrow, but could not prove it since he had given the prize to Marian. He said that he was happy to join their band anyway, even if it was not as their leader. Then one man stepped forward. Rob recognized him as the man with the green eye patch, although the patch was now removed. Rob in the Hood, for such the lady called you, said the man. I can vouch for your tale. You shamed the sheriff as I had hoped to do. We can forego the golden arrow, since it is in such fair hands. As to your shooting and mine, we must let future days decide. But I, Will Stuteley, declare that I will serve no other chief but you. Then Will Stuteley told the outlaws of Rob's deeds. All the outlaws pledged their loyalty and hailed Rob as their leader, using the name Robin Hood, and he accepted that name because Maid Marian had said it. The band exchanged signs and passwords. They gave Robin Hood a horn to blow upon to summon them. They swore that while they might take money and goods from the unjust rich, they would use the money to aid the poor and the helpless, and that they would harm no woman. And that is how Robin Hood became an outlaw.